We talked about it could expand when capacity needs were growing or demand was high. It could contract itself when demand was lower. And so what happened was, and in order to be able to do this, we had great levels of automation that were built into the application, into the infrastructure, and into the overall nature of these businesses that were delivering software as a service, which was really sort of the first incarnation of what people thought of for cloud computing. Now, in most cases, these were thought to be public cloud. And by public cloud, that means that the resources were available to the public. They resided out on the internet in a public domain. They weren't behind corporate firewalls. They weren't sort of hidden from competitive companies. They were available to the public. And what happened was many companies, enterprise companies, government organizations, mid-sized companies, began to ask themselves, okay, a lot of these services that I may be able to use as a public cloud, or in some cases, software as a service, SaaS, how did they begin to ask themselves, how are those companies doing that? And since those public cloud resources and those software as a service resources didn't make up everything that they needed to do for their business, or at least at the time, they began to ask themselves, how do I go about leveraging what these companies do? What are their best practices? And are there ways in which I can take advantage of those best practices, leverage those technologies, and either use them on a different level internally for their own business in many cases. I want to run it privately, and so this is where you hear a term like private cloud come up. It was in essence businesses asking, can I begin to run some of my applications, some of my IT services in a controlled manner in their data centers within their resources? But it also sort of spawned this idea that maybe service providers should get into the business of being able to have infrastructure resources, application resources available as sort of the next generation of outsourcing, if you will, right? More dynamic resources, more self-service resources, more dynamic infrastructure, the ability to host multiple types of applications, multiple types of application development environment. And so what we've ultimately evolved to from a cloud computing perspective was the original, everything was public, everything was mostly software as a service, to an environment where enterprises and governments and commercial customers are asking, how do I take all of these things and potentially deliver them, within their private environments, within their own data centers? That's one new concept that's beginning to evolve. We're seeing more and more companies who are saying, what can I leverage in the public cloud? What type of core versus context things for my business should I own? Should I look at managing from an operational perspective versus a capital expenditure perspective? What new applications can I potentially get faster in the public cloud, right? So with the advent of mobile devices, tablet devices, smartphones, applications that are maybe more efficient through touch, maybe I want to leverage things in a public cloud, or I want to leverage development environments that are more rapidly evolving, that are more geared toward those environments. And so all these questions are starting to come up, but what we're seeing is the best practices for how to build a cloud environment, a dynamic, highly automated, self-service aware, supporting multiple applications environment is becoming more well known, and whether it's used for private resources, public resources, or we're beginning to see more and more companies that are saying, with all this evolution going on, these technology evolutions that are going on, this opens up a huge number of opportunities for me. Not only can I potentially run my applications, my legacy applications or my existing applications more efficiently, I may be able to start looking at some new development environments to be able to build new applications. So things that I want to build for my business where I believe I have a competitive advantage, I have certain unique knowledge, certain ways to access data, and I want to begin to look at new ways of writing those applications, so new development environments. And that's